Hey guys, welcome back to sports with Mono and Mono. Steve, you look a little fuzzy. You must be on your phone, perhaps.
We do what we must do. I am on my iPhone 6,
Okay. Well, we do what we
not
got to do
13,
because our
6.
fans demand it. So, so it's the
Hello,
it's the
everybody.
sixth day
Welcome
of
back.
yeah,
Huh?
it's the 6th day of August, right? Got through
Yes,
some.
happy belated birthday to my brother Jim, who just had a birthday this week.
Thank you, thank you very much. At my age, we stopped counting, but we're
We're
gonna do it
thankful for
anyway.
each birthday that comes.
Wouldn't you think so? So, Steve,
Yep.
our monologue is sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summer Hill, New York, and I will let you take it away, sir.
Well, again, ad nauseum, I have to mention Deshaun Watson and the farce that
Yep,
continues to go on, if you will.
yep.
Um, the way the NFL's appeal process or arbitration works, it seems like it's different from case to case, and it really, you really probably need a law license just to even
Right.
navigate through it all. So, when a 6 game suspension comes down from Susan Robinson, who, by all accounts, is a fair-minded legal person that, took in all the evidence, and it's not just that um, she made her decision based on the circumstances of the case and everything like this. She's bound by, back to my original point, this legal jargon of the appeal process and the Players Association. And if you do this and do this, then the NFL has the right to appeal. So here we are. So the NFL has the right to appeal, which is a complete farce. Okay.
Totally.
Nothing is going to happen here. Okay. The NFL is doing this because of the outcry that Deshaun Watson is getting 6 games. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because this week the NFL hands down harsher punishment to Stephen Ross and the Miami Dolphins for what? I'm not condoning it. The punishment fits the crime here. Tampering with Tom Brady and Sean Payton, and meaning what? Having phone conversations with their agents while they're employed by other teams. So the Miami Dolphins lose a 23 first round draft pick and a third round draft pick. So at the end of the day, you tell me and the audience, what's more ridiculous? The Miami Dolphins losing a first round draft pick, and Deshaun Watson getting 6 games, when we both know and the whole audience knows and everybody knows Deshaun Watson minimum year, minimum,
I
minimum.
fully expected it to be a year. I mean,
And that's my monologue. That the NFL is, the training camps are open, and here we go with another season of this nonsense.
yeah. Well, listen. I mean, we have talked ad nauseum about this, Steve, for for over a year. And again, it's the Cleveland Browns that I guess they knew somehow they knew what the punishment was going to be, and they thought it was worth the risk. But from a PR perspective, it's an absolute mess. And he a 6 game suspension for other guys get suspected DUI or domestic violence, and these are things that if the NFL really wants to change the character expectation of players, then this is unacceptable. And I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know
this
how it's going to
personal
be played.
con. It's this personal conduct, quote unquote,
Right.
policy that they have. And to your point, again, there's 66 women here. We all know how ridiculous this is. Okay, that where there's smoke, there's fire. Okay, the Houston Texans settled with the with the women because you know what? It's a lot cheaper doing business that way and keeping the non-disclosures and everything else. It's good for business. But they know, right? I mean, we all know, everybody knows that this guy is a serious problem, has a serious problem.
You're right.
And, and the fact that 2 grand juries did not indict, I get it. Rusty Hardin can spin it all he wants as attorney. But when you have 66 women, and I mean, it's really it's so ugly, but the NFL again on the first weekend that they open games, ratings will be there,
And the whole thing, Steve,
the money will be pouring in.
Right, but the whole thing is, is Deshaun Watson a franchise top 3 quarterback in this league for them to have made this trade and carry this baggage, alienate the Cleveland fans? It's outrageous. And I don't think there's going to be any appeal. I mean, I think this was binding arbitration by Sue Robinson, and I don't think it's
Right,
going
the
to.
NFL has the right to appeal, so they have, Goodell just hires Peter Garvey, I think, or Peter Harvey, former New Jersey Attorney General, to listen to the appeal case. But he's going to listen to exactly what Susan Robinson,
Yeah.
read. And nothing's going to happen here. All the NFL is trying to do is save face here by saying, "Oh, well, we don't agree with the 6 games." Yeah,
That's exactly right. This is Roger Goodell at work, and it's more important for the NFL to get this guy back on the field and play football and try to justify this $280 million guaranteed contract. It's not about the personal conduct policies that they've been trying to implement, which is a joke, right? You're right. Donald Ross gets 1 day more, 6 months and 1 day more than Deshaun Watson. And yes, Donald Ross is an absolute disgrace as an owner.
Stephen
anyway.
Ross.
Stephen,
Ross.
right? Yeah. So anyway, so we beat that to death.
And it's really, hopefully, it's the last time I got to talk about it. To be honest,
Me too.
I'm sick to death of it.
Right. Just as sick as the whole Kyrie Irving, Deshaun Watson. These need to go away, and we've covered them in death. And anyway, so Steve, let's move on because Major League Baseball, right? Yankees got 52 games or something left. There was some big trades, and I really thought that Juan Soto was going to be a New York Met. I thought whatever it took for Stephen, who's the owner? Cohen. But they didn't make that trade. He ends up in Padres, and the Padres got quite a team right now. I mean, they're trying to compete. They signed Machado a couple of years ago, but they made some big deals. And yeah, he's a player. A lot of people say, we're banking on potential, right? But he seems to have all the tools, whether he ends up there. And you brought it up, Steve. He's just a rental for 2 seasons. And, this could give them a legitimate chance of beating the Dodgers to get to the World Series. I really think so.
I do too. And San Diego had the assets to pull this off. Listen, he's after 2 years in San Diego. I don't know why he would want to go anywhere else, to be honest with you, right?
It's a pretty nice place to play. Yeah.
So I think Soto most likely will stay there for 10 plus years.
You would think, but that payroll they got with Machado, Tatis, and Soto, I don't know how they're going to do it, but
the new owners got money. There's no salary cap in baseball. They can pay whatever the hell they want.
Yeah.
But the Dodgers and the Padres are loaded for bear, and I think it's great for the National League. Where you have the Mets and the Braves battling on the East. The Padres and Dodgers, only one can go to the World Series, so that's going to be interesting. As far as what the Yankees did at the trade deadline, I didn't think that they'd have the ability to pull off the Juan Soto trade, nor, especially with the Judge contract coming up, and we all know Hal is not George when it comes to overspending.
Negotiations. Yeah.
It's called negotiation. Yankees, I'm getting a lot of blowback on Jordan Montgomery being dealt to the Cardinals.
That was a little surprising to me.
For Harrison Bader. Montgomery eats innings. I'll grant you that. Montgomery's a nice pitcher. He's a pending free agent. He's going to pitch against the Yankees this weekend. And I don't know. Yeah, today. So I'm okay with the move, to be honest.
Right, but the Yankees also made a trade. They got this guy Frankie Montas from Oakland. So they but again, and our brother Tom pointed it out. I mean, a left-hander who can give you innings is worth keeping. So I don't know what we're getting with Montas, but overall, listen, the best thing the Yankees did was trade your guy, Joey Gallo. And somebody, we were back and forth for a couple of days over this. That wasn't a bad trade for the Yankees. We gave up Joey Gallo and got 3 used batting gloves. I thought that was a pretty funny line.
Listen, the fact that we got a live human being that breathes and thinks and is a human being, that's a plus. But the Yankees got this guy Clayton Beeter, and Clayton Beeter was pretty damn good at Texas Tech. Had Tommy John surgery, ranked 15th prospect for the Dodgers. I watched some footage of him. Listen, I'm not saying this kid's the next coming of Max Scherzer or anything. I'm just saying that when we had to ship out prospects, you got to get prospects back into the system.
That's right. That's right.
The fact that Joey Gallo, the Dodgers took him, really, I found that to be stunning. Joey Gallo was packing his bags a week in advance. He knew. We all knew. He had to go. So he leaves the New York Yankees as the worst career, with the worst career batting average, or the worst batting average, during his tenure in Yankee history. 159, 159, an absolute train wreck. And another person threw out here, the Powerball-like scenario that, let's just say, the Dodgers and the Yankees make it to the World Series, hypothetically, right? And it's game 6 or 7 in the Bronx. And there's a right-handed pitcher on the mound for the New York Yankees, and there's a lefty batter who used to play for the Yankees a couple months prior. And what if he hit a Reggie Jackson type like home run at Yankee Stadium?
That's not going to happen.
I said, if that scenario played out, it would be the most unbelievable thing I think I would ever have witnessed.
And I thought one of the other trades, Steve, which was, and you actually brought something up about Trey Mancini on one of your monologues not too long ago, like longtime Baltimore Oriole, and he was a little bummed out that he was getting traded, especially now that the Baltimore Orioles seem to be an up and coming team, you would think. But he goes out and hits 2 home runs for the Astros. I mean, the change of scenery for certain guys just matters. But he was a loyal Oriole, and he was disappointed to have been traded, to be quite honest.
Right. I mean, Mancini is a pending free agent after the year. And listen, this kid is the face of the Orioles. No doubt about it. He's their best player. Obviously survived the cancer, and it's such a feel-good story. He's a great guy. I did a monologue probably last year when I read an in-depth piece on him. Does he re-sign with Houston? Maybe not. Maybe does he go back to the Orioles? Is it a shrewd move by the Orioles to be able to get a top prospect back from Houston? and maybe Trey
Maybe,
Mancini comes back. Who knows?
maybe.
Um,
But that's a
Trey
guy. That's a
Mancini's the
guy you
type of
root for.
right. Trey Mancini, I'm saying, is like
Yep.
when you compare to Joey Gallo, right? I want Trey. You give me 10 Trey, 9 Trey, Trey Mancinis, and I'm
Yep.
not saying Joey Gallo is a bad guy, people. It just didn't fit, and it was just a horrible experience for the fan, the team, and Joey Gallo himself.
Yeah, I think Joey Gallo would be best to move into the pickleball arena now. Something to that effect, where you can
Yeah.
actually hit the ball. But
Yeah.
anyway,
And
so
on the
Steve,
flip side, the New York Mets basically stay, still at the deadline. A couple minor moves. Then somebody asked me during the week and said, what do you think of that? And I said, this is my scenario. Buck Showalter walked into Billy Epler and Cohen's office, sat down, and they talked. And Buck said, you know what, guys? I like the team the way it's constructed right now, and let's go to. I want to go to war and battle with these guys. And listen, if DeGrom stays healthy, the Mets are obviously going to make the playoffs. That 1-2 punch of DeGrom and Scherzer in a 7-game series.
and I watched DeGrom pitch
Good
the
luck
other
to the
night.
other team. Good luck
He's
to
back.
the other team.
He's ready to go. He's healthy.
Yeah,
So now you got those 2 starters, right? Those are for the most part guaranteed wins every time, but they're going to be battling the Braves right down to the wire. So we'll see. I was a little surprised. There was one guy on the Mets that I thought had much more potential, and turned out kind of a disappointment. Was J.D. Davis, and they sent him somewhere for, I think, to San Francisco for rough, something like that.
Yeah, they sent him to San Francisco, and it's funny because J.D. Davis tweeted in like 2013
right.
like how much he hated the San Francisco Giants, things like that. I mean, he was a kid. It's just a funny thing. It's no big deal.
It is.
But back to the Yankees real quick. This is what, before the season started, the way they're playing right now is basically how I envision this team to play. Again, the start they had, the first half they had, I have no explanation for. They just couldn't lose. And then people, were having this discussion, and you even asked the question 3 weeks ago, do you think they're going to break the all-time wins record? And I know I said flat out, hell no, no chance, right? I'm not saying the Yankees are going to implode. I'm not saying they're not going to make the playoffs because, they are so far, ahead right now. But I just don't see this team going to the World Series. I don't see it. Houston is formidable. And,
well, we just got a comment.
Huh?
We just got a comment from our buddy Jeremy, and are the Yanks in trouble? I don't know, but you're right. I mean, Houston is going to be a formidable foe for that. And of course, it'll be a disappointment, and Judge will get the MVP and whatever, and then they'll re-sign him to a ridiculous contract. But we talked about this, Steve, about the Yankees when you looked at that lineup and from the beginning of the year, like an older Josh Donaldson, but your guy DJ LeMahieu, who's been kind of carrying the load for the past few weeks. They had a subpar,
but not to the level of what I expect of DJ LeMahieu. I mean, he's certainly not the problem. When you have Aaron Hicks, who's 0 for 23 again, all this nonsense, he's got to go. I can't stand looking at him anymore. Rizzo has been producing home runs, RBIs, but then when you look at Anthony Rizzo, batting 220, right? Gleyber Torres batting 260. But what do we see from Gleyber Torres, and and Boone still condones this lack of hustle crap that I can't stand, as everybody knows. All right, Kiner Falefa seems like a nice player. He's not really the problem. Problem is, Josh Donaldson batting 220. The catcher's been doing a real nice job. Trevino, good pickup there. Okay, Aaron Judge. Giancarlo Stanton, we cannot rely on this guy You telling me you're exhausted at the All-Star break? You're
Well,
31. You're exhausted already. I don't want to hear that.
I
I
know.
don't want to hear it.
I know.
So yes,
But no,
I have concerns like Jeremy Bennett, my dear friend,
I do
stated.
too. I got concerns too. I just think it needs to be. It's not a slam dunk, and obviously the long ball is going to be key to them because the other 220 hitters, which is up and down the lineup, it's going to be a problem unless you hit home runs. So
Right, but
we'll
that
see.
the Yankees aren't the only team. The whole Major League Baseball. We've talked about it all the time. It's strikeout,
Yep.
home run. That's what it is.
So Steve, let's move on here. I wanted to talk about the Hall of Fame. Today's the Hall of Fame, guys.
Yeah.
And I just was going up and down the list again. And again, I'm going to bring this up because I was looking at it and you and I went up and down the list and we said, Bryant Young, Hall of Famer? Not so sure. Richard Seymour, Hall of Famer? Not so sure. Sam Mills. And Sam Mills was a very, very good linebacker. But doesn't that mean Carl Banks and Carl Mecklenburg and Randy Gradishar should be in the Hall of Fame? It's perplexing to me. I really, it drives me crazy that
Tommy
some of these,
Novus,
right. But
right?
here's the other thing. So now there's this senior, right? The senior finalist group. Finally, Joe Klecko is on it, right? But
Tommy
look at,
Novus.
but Steve, listen to the names that are not in the Hall of Fame, and we're putting Tony Baselli, who played 6 years in the Hall of Fame, Jim Lachey, Randy Cross, Bill Fralick, Sterling Sharp, Mike Curtis. These guys aren't in the Hall of Fame, and we're putting Seymours and Mills in. Does that make sense to you?
No. Nope. It does not.
Right?
Something
you would
seriously wrong.
but you would even consider Randy Cross a Hall of Famer. He played 2 different positions, maybe 3. I just
No
don't get it.
question.
This isn't a knock on them. I think it's just a knock on the system that they're not picking the players that had the most impact at their position. And if Randy Gradishar and Carl Mecklenburg didn't play in the same era as Jack Lambert, right? That's why they're not in the Hall of Fame, because he was overshadowed. But Joe Klecko belongs in the Hall of Fame, and I'm not going to rest until he gets there. But he shouldn't be there before Richard Seymour. I'm sorry.
Well, unfortunately, Seymour is going to be there before Klecko. But like Mike Garvey saying, Joe Klecko, and folks, you couldn't have 2 more bigger advocates than Mano and Mano here, as far as Joe Klecko is concerned.
Yep.
This guy, Joe Klecko, he was great. He's just strong, powerful. Played 3 different positions and excelled at all of them.
Yep.
And I'm really stunned. We've talked about it a lot, but I got to think the omission of Joe Klecko and the fact that it's taken this long to even get to a senior committee type of voting, to me, is the most perplexing Hall of Fame snub.
And it drives me
out there.
Because we are football historians and we know how prominent. Like, could you even imagine that Mike Curtis is not in the Hall of Fame? I mean, and Harry Carson is? Does that make sense?
No.
All right. So we talked about it, but Steve, we got to move on to
and Chuck Howley is another name. I just wanted to real quick, I know we're moving on, but Chuck Howley is under consideration.
That's
and Chuck
another
Howley, for folks out there, he's the Super Bowl MVP from the losing team when the Cowboys lost to the Colts. Chuck Howley, just an all-time great. So,
and that's not just the Cowboy fans
no, it's
saying
not. No,
it's Chuck Howley, the player, right?
correct. I think
And
our audience knows, we're objective when it comes to
all
when we
right,
have to
I hope
discuss
so.
those things.
So, Steve, I wanted to move on because we had a couple of big losses in the world of sports this week. And, first it was Bill Russell. And you and I have talked extensively on how much we admired this guy, how just his presence alone, his resume is ridiculous. 2 national championships in college, a gold medal, 11 out of 13 championships in Boston. And then it just comes right back to the thought, the way they treated Bill Russell in Boston is such an abomination, right? But for 48 minutes a night, he was the greatest guy on the planet. And when he left the building, he was subjected to some of the most vile, heinous things ever. And you know what? He maintained his composure, and he was charismatic, and he was absolutely at the forefront of the whole civil rights thing. And you got to give him credit. He had that for him. And when you look at him on the basketball court, I mean, we talk about Michael Jordans and Chamberlains, but 11 out of 13 is just unbelievable. I mean, that's a big loss in the world of sports. And Bill Russell was 88 years old, and this is gonna be a big loss for the NBA because these kids today, they certainly don't appreciate what Bill Russell brought to them, and the fact that they're making $40 million a year because of guys like Bill Russell. But a big loss. Give me your thoughts on William Russell.
Yeah, I mean, I made the statement 3 weeks ago, maybe. I did the monologue on Messier and the '94 Rangers, and I said, Mark Messier is probably the greatest team leader in all of sports, and because of Russell's passing, I have to give that pause, right? I do. I got to think Bill Russell is the all-time leader in leading a team, right? So the results speak for themselves. 11 out of 13. His will to compete was ferocious. I read something funny about the battle with Will Chamberlain, with Russell, and Russell said, when the Celtics had the game in hand, pretty much against the Lakers, he'd back off a little bit without Wilt knowing, so Wilt could score a couple more points and feel a little bit better about himself, right? I thought that was funny. Bill Russell, the civil rights aspect of this, and yes, again, going to school in Boston, I was privy to some Bill Russell stories, but the things that he had to endure from a racial standpoint were just sickening. Made him stronger, iconic athlete, Bill Russell. I have to put him up there really as probably the greatest team athlete, and regardless of sport, human being, well revered by anybody that came to came in contact with. And he was a mentor to an awful lot of players, even today's $40-50 million guys, from Steph Curry to you name it. His door was always open for a young basketball player to go and pick his brain. And it's a big loss. It's probably the biggest sports loss we're going to encounter.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I just wanted to make sure that our audience knows what kind of a person Bill Russell was, just on a basketball court and from an
his
overall
his character,
humanitarian,
his character, and his
flawless.
flawless.
And he had that infectious laugh, which was so right. You would know that laugh anywhere, and it was just well done. And we wanted to give a big RIP to
And if you
Bill
cross
Russell.
Bill Russell, you were done. Okay, you were done with him, right? Meaning he tuned you right out, right? But there's only a handful of people out there that are in that category. But
Yep.
Bill Russell at 88, just a great life and just a iconic person.
Yep. R.I.P. Bill Russell.
R.I.P. Bill Russell.
But Steve, we got one other one, and he wasn't a player, but he was probably the most revered broadcaster in all of sports, and he did a lot. Yeah, I mean, Vin Scully had a resume that nobody else can match, and at 64 years, you tend to get that. He called 3 perfect games. He called World Series. He called the Dwight Clark catch as well, right?
Yeah.
And when you want to talk about, we were just giving kudos to a Bill Russell. I mean, this guy was every bit as kind, polite, and he had so much history. And part of his game time thing was to reference stories from the old days that really happened, and he was in on there and he was 94 years old. We knew he was in distress for a while, but when you see somebody like that, that's a loss for baseball. That really is. And all of the other guys, the Bob Costas and all these other guys, they owe it to Vin Scully. And I hope they're appreciative of what he brought to them and made broadcasting part of the game, right? And he tutelaged under Red Barber, and the story of how he ended up meeting Red Barber at some radio station in Cleveland, and that was the beginning of a long, illustrious, and professional career. That voice and those stories is something I'm gonna miss.
Yeah, no question. Vin Scully, a native New Yorker, he's a Fordham man. And,
he was a Fordham man, yes.
Absolutely. In our audience, I know Ted, my buddy Ted Giandana, Fordham man. Our brother Tom, a Fordham man. Our niece Caroline, a Fordham man. Jeremy Bennett, a Fordham man. So Vin Scully played outfield at Fordham for, I think, a year and a half. He was just an average, but player, but his love of baseball. So throw that out, and then he went into the sports department, and so 70+ years later, we're talking about Vin Scully. But by all accounts, Vin Scully was one of the most genuine, nicest, caring people out there, and professionally, it's really hard. It's not even a debate really as to Vin Scully and I'm 57, you're 59 now, and all the memories that we have of games past, that Vin Scully, the Kirk Gibson home run against the Eckersley, and on and on and on. But his ability to just, to your point, weave stories in and out from the past, whether it be the 50s, 60s, 70s, whatever it may be, to today's game, it was just special. And Michael Kay, I listened to Michael Kay a couple days ago. He's a Fordham man too. But Michael Kay got introduced to Vin Scully out in Seattle. So it's got to be, 20, 30 years ago probably. And he was very nervous. And Michael Kay said the first time he met him, he put him right at ease, and he just fell in love with the guy, right? He was just, I took it from that, his account. I found that to be pretty spot on as to that's who Vince Scully was, and
Right.
lived a great life. R.I.P. And it's unfortunate, but
Yep.
we'll all get there eventually. So
Yep.
R.I.P. Vin.
But he was really a professional, and I that's a big loss. So
Yes, it is.
So Steve, let's move on to our random points of interest, which are sponsored by Lynch Toyota of Manchester, Connecticut, who, and I apologize, Mr. Lynch, I was going to wear the president of Lynch Motors sent Steve and I a little care package with some shirts and some
Thank you, Mike.
little gadgets, little swag bag, and we thank you very much, Mr. Lynch.
I'm looking forward to my free 2023 souped up SE Camry coming in the mail soon, too.
Bring your checkbook. So Steve, random points of interest, and again, when we were talking about Bill Russell, we obviously can't leave out Michel the Rocket Richard, who had 11 championships. And I agree, back then there wasn't many teams. It wasn't the original 6, but it was a smaller league. But that's pretty notable too. And you want to talk about an icon like Bill Russell in basketball, Maurice Richard was just as good, and he had 11 championships as well. A lot of people don't remember that. But.
Right, and folks, it's not like Richard and Russell, they won 11 championships because of them only. These guys were blessed as well to play with great teammates.
That's right. Yep,
it was the perfect storm.
Yes, it is. So the other, and we're going to only touch on this briefly because I thought it was interesting that Greg Norman comes out and says, Tiger Woods turned down $800 million to join the LIV Tour, and when he turned that down, that made me so happy that he understands the legacy of the PGA Tour, and he understands who got them there and all these other guys. So he goes, that money, and yes, he's a billionaire already, but I think he showed a remarkable commitment to the legacies of Jack Nicholson, Arnold Palmer, Player, Hogan, everybody. And I'm so glad that he didn't take that money, and he's holding to his principles. And I love it. I love it.
I do. Listen, I do too. But first and foremost, let's be real. This is Tiger we're talking about. It's about his legacy. He knew if he took that money, he's not. It stains him forever.
Yes. But the whole LIV Tour, and this is, by the way, this is going to get ugly because now you got Mickelson and his LIV crew filing antitrust lawsuits against the PGA, and I don't know how that's going to pan out. It's going to drag out in the courts for a while. But these guys, what they're missing, and not that Mickelson should be on a Ryder Cup team at his age anyway. But the Ryder Cup means something to these guys, and it means an awful lot to the PGA guys. And they weren't willing to compromise that they couldn't play for the Ryder Cup for being a sellout in Saudi Arabia. I give them credit for that. Here's one,
I don't
Steve.
even follow it. I don't even.
No, I don't follow it. I won't watch it.
I don't know.
And I certainly won't go to it. I mean, I certainly won't go to an event, whether it's in Bedminster or not, which is right down the street from us.
Right.
But here was a disappointing random point, Steve. And you hate to see this, an injury, but Paige Beckers, who was the consensus, best player in college basketball last year as a freshman, suffered a major ACL tear, out for the season. And what does that mean? Does Gino have a Paige Beckers in reserve somewhere? They've been in the Final Four for the past 15 straight years, and but that was the marquee player for them. And I just wonder, if
Same.
that's going to start, oh my God, look, UConn's not going to be the powerhouse. I mean, I think they got a lot of other players, but Paige Beckers was a special player.
Right.
That's
Unfortunately,
going
this
to
is
be a
the
big
second
loss.
time she's tore the ACL. I think it's the same knee actually,
Yeah.
and it's not good. It's not good at all. I feel very, very bad for her. And yeah, she was considered, if not the best, she was right up there as one of the top players in women's
And she
college
still had 3
basketball.
more years to play. I mean,
Hey, listen, again with technology and surgery, who's to say that she doesn't come back, misses a full year, obviously, most likely. But who's to say that her career is over at this point?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Gino, this cupboard is awfully full. It's a big loss for UConn, but I still think UConn can make the Final Four. I don't think they can win the national championship without her, but they can continue their streak of getting to the Final Four.
yeah, but that's a big loss for college basketball on the women's
Certainly
side.
is.
She's really good. All right, Steve. Before we wrap up, we had a couple other notables as well. And I know you know who these are. First of all, William White, remember, former defensive back for Ohio State, had a fairly decent career. I think he played with the Lions most of his career.
Yeah.
Right? 56 years old.
Yeah.
That's
basically my age, right?
But he was a pretty decent. He was definitely a good player at Ohio State, and nobody ever got to see him play because nobody wanted to watch Detroit because they sucked for 20 years. But he was a pretty good ball player. And here's another one.
He had to live later in life with the comparisons going. Are you Walter White from Breaking Bad?
No, it's William White.
I know.
Anyway, here's another one, and you and I certainly remember this guy because we're college football guys. Lars Tate, remember?
Of course.
56 years old, led Georgia in rushing for 2 seasons back in the late 80s or early 90s. He was a good running back.
Probably right before Rodney Hampton. It was kind of right before Rodney Hampton.
Yeah, that's probably the era. Yeah, I think so. Wow. And of course, we had a couple from the world of entertainment. Nichelle Nichols, ring a bell?
Oh, does it ever?
Uhura, right?
Correct.
And I got to tell you, though, I never
watched. The only
watched.
reason I watched Star Trek. The only reason.
I never watched Star Trek.
When I say watched it, I mean for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
To get a
glimpse. Exactly, it's actually probably not a bad show, but I just that wasn't in our wheelhouse for sure.
No, it wasn't. How old was she? 86 or something?
Yeah. She was 89.
Yeah.
And how about this? Pat Carroll. And it's kind of funny because we remember her and she was on game shows and every sitcom or whatever.
And we still don't know what she was in.
Right. But one of my all-time favorite, and the movie came out when my kids were little, The Little Mermaid. She was Ursula, Yeah. And I tell you, that was one of my favorite movies from watching with my kids. But she had a pretty good career, man. And she was 95 years old.
Correct. So Sebastian was my favorite character in The Little Mermaid.
I'm going to kill him a crab, his father would say. I used to do it, Sebastian, anyway.
Yeah, of course.
So, Rob, I wanted to thank you for posting up that picture last week of my grandson, who's very excited to be, becoming a young football player and stuff. And there it is.
There he is.
I mean, look at that helmet. That's 10 times better than the helmets you and I wore when we were there, you know? And
This
who's
is my
that?
little guy. Wanted to throw this out here. So I took him up to Fairfield University last Friday, a week ago Friday, for a
Okay.
showcase. His last one for the summer, and he was named to the All-Star team for the showcase, and he's had a real good summer of development. And I think in about a month, we should hopefully start getting letters from schools interested in him, and we should go from there. So I just wanted to show his picture. I'm very proud of my son, Sean.
Yeah. And yeah, he's really come a long way from literally in the past year and a half. I mean, I've seen him play with you, of course.
Yeah.
And I know that the popularity of this sport is becoming bigger than any sport coming up, right? I mean, kids want to play this. And I've always told you, I don't get it. It's not hockey to me. I just doesn't appeal to me. But you know what? If he's good at what he does, then he'll get recognized at some point. So we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, folks. So thanks for joining us. And again, we got love to hear from you with an email at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com. And we love doing the show. And like I said, we can do it, wherever we have to, we will do it. And like I said, I'm up in Vermont doing the show today. But Steve and I will be back local next week. And we thank our producer, Rob, behind the scenes.
Thank you, Rob.
And so you guys enjoy your bocce tournament, Rob. And we'll be back next week with another edition of Sports with Mono and Mono. See you guys later, and thanks for the listening.
Rob, send me that inside info on the bocce tournament. And I want to throw some money down.
Yeah.
On Myrtle versus Muriel.
Right. You don't have to send it to me, Rob, but good luck with that anyway. See you guys next week.
You guys want the bocce, the horse racing, or the turtle racing?
Turtle racing.
Yeah, I'll go to turtle racing.
We have rubber duck racing too.
How long does the turtle race take? 4 hours?
Nah, the little guys take off and win usually. Okay. One of these days, I'm gonna do a live over one of these days, and I'll put it up on the screen. You guys see all the live events.
Can't wait.
Enjoy.
Enjoy your weekend.
All right, guys. Thanks. Good show. We'll talk to you next week.